Okay. The vocabulary for these special populations shows the same pattern for core fringe ratios and for the absence of picture producers. Stewart, this is Sheila Stewart. She's at the National Children's Hospital or National Rehabilitation Hospital in DC. Stewart identified the vocabulary use patterns of 65 to 74-year-old and 75 to 85-year-old adults. Communication samples of routine conversations were collected from 2 cohorts of 10 individuals each, 5 men and 5 women, using voice-activated portable audio tape recorders. These were, where did Sheila Stewart find these? Well, she found them in a Methodist church in Lincoln, Nebraska. They were, older people, and they volunteered, and they put the tape recorder, the same kind of procedure. Okay. The frequency of word use patterns across the age cohorts is quite similar. The 25 most commonly occurring words was 37% for the 65 to 74-year-old cohort, 39% for the 75 to 80-year-old cohort. The percentage of the total sample represented by the 250 most common words was 78% for the 65 to 74-year-old cohort and 78% for the 75 to 85-year-old cohort. The actual single words used by the cohort showed a large degree of overlap. Although the topics of the cohorts were sometimes quite different, the overlap among the cohorts was over 90%. The differences in topics, where the greatest was the 65 to 75-year-old women, 74-year-old women, as opposed to the 75 to 85-year-old men. The men were talking about stories from their lives, largely. And the 65 to 74-year-old women were still involved with the rearing of their grandchildren. And a couple of the men had actually been in the Pacific during the Second World War. And okay, so you're changing a diaper, or you're wading ashore at Guadalcanal, wet, smelly, the odor, tired, dangerous, okay, what I'm saying is you can just, oh man, you should have been there. You should have been there. It was awful. They left them with me. Nobody was there but me. It's, one person is talking about being stuck with babysitting and having her daughter and son-in-law not come home until way late. And the other guy's talking about what it was like to be crouched down at Guadalcanal. But the words are the same. Just like I found at Westinghouse. It didn't matter whether we were talking about, the water flowing for bathrooms, for, inside the electrical plant, or whether we were talking about internally generated missiles. The words are the same. Okay, here are the Stewart words. This is 174 most frequently occurring words. It's 72% of the total words. And take a look at the A's with me. And you have these words, of course. A, about, all right, always, am, and, another, any, anything, are, around, as, ask, at. Guys, do you see how dead bang this is on the children's words? And how very close to dead bang it is on the adolescent words from Sydney? Look over here. Stuff. Something. Look at said. Say, she, see, should. The overlap is incredible. And let's take a look at where Stewart harvested these. Okay, I'd like someone to read the places where these words were harvested. Cindy, would you do that for us, please?
Okay. Places, participants, home, restaurants, apartment complexes, community rooms, stores, malls, hospitals, churches, cars, friends and relatives' homes, senior citizen centers, and outdoors.
Okay. Who would like to do, is that a lot of places?
Yeah.
Who would like to do the activities? Yes.
Okay, activities, talking on the telephone, eating, household projects, shopping, church study, playing games, reading hobbies, volunteer work, watching movies, transportation to events, and visiting.
Okay. This is really a broad range of areas and times. By the way, I had twice in my 25 years experience participated in vocabulary selection for ministers, retired ministers who had had strokes. And they had led church study groups, and we wanted to be sure to give them the vocabulary they could use in church study. And, you know, I mean, you name the book of the Bible, I mean, you know, Pastor Jones is going to wants to give a class on Kings, First Kings and Samuel, you know, and parallels, you know, and then, you know, all of a sudden you've got begat, you know, you're searching through all the words that are appropriate there, or he's going to, you know, the church study group is going to be on Job. What kind of words are you going to put in? And, well, let me tell you the book of Job in core vocabulary. There was a good man, and he loved God, and God and the bad person had this you know, talked, and the bad person said the reason the good man loved God was because he got good things. But God said no. And so God sent very bad things to the good man. And the good man still loved God. And the good man's friends told him that God was sending him bad things because he was bad. And then God sent all the good things back to the good man and sent all the bad things to the good man's friends. I just told you the book of Job in, you know, a minute, and I used all core vocabulary. So what I would like to say is we were a million miles off. What we needed to give to these retired ministers was not specialized theological terms to deal with Job's sense of isolation from God. You know what I mean? We just needed to give basic words. And right now there's a project coming out of Temple University that is very good in many ways, but I think is somewhat misdirected in certain ways. And I'll tell you how I think it's misdirected. At Temple, they have found several hundred sexual abuse words. Did you know that 80% of people who use augmentative communication who live in nursing homes or other kind of custodial care have experienced sexual abuse? I mean, the numbers are just astronomical, and so it was thought that it should be important to develop a vocabulary for this. And in certain ways it was good, but I think in certain ways it was misdirected because every possible human position, every possible human perverse position was given some Latin name. Like fellatio, and you know, and I think all you need to say is he touched me wrong place. He touched me wrong place with mouth. He put hand wrong place. He do bad thing with finger. I mean, it's there. You know, you don't need 100 Latin terms to describe various you know, perverse things. You can say it all in very simple language. I mean, I mean, even Winston Churchill's most eloquent terms, a man given to being very wordy, is never have so many owed so much to so few. You know, when you look at blood, sweat, you know what I mean? You know, blood, sweat, tears. I believe that core vocabulary will take you a tremendous way. I believe most of what we say is core, and I believe almost everything that we can say can be core. Okay.